Welcome again to this feast of Christ the King. George Washington, our very first president, was quoted as saying, I don't know if you know this, so George Washington, he was reelected for the 2 terms, and then when it came a 3rd term, people were saying, why don't we just forget this president thing and why don't you just become the king of these United States? Have you heard this story before? And so what did President George Washington say? He said, I did not defeat King George of England to become King George the First of these United States. We're not into kings here in the Americas. In fact, in all of the Americas, there's never really been a king that's lasted in these Americas at all, ever, in any country. And actually, do you know why? There's a reason why in the Americas that we've never had a king as a leader. It's because when our Blessed Mother appeared in Guadalupe, she said, am I not your mother? Aren't you all my children? Are not we all equal in the eyes of the Lord? And she was the very first mestizo, meaning the mix of the European and the local peoples. And so, in all the Americas, we've always seen there isn't anybody who's created better or created worse than anybody else, but that we are all created in the image and likeness of God. And so, we have a leader for a while, and then we have another leader, and thanks be to God that we live in these wonderful United States of America, where we have this wonderful process that happens year after year. I'm not getting political on you. I've said this every year. I've been ordained 25 years, so don't think I'm going political here. But how wonderful it is that we get to vote in our president, and then we get to vote out the president after 4 years and vote in another one. What a gift we have in that. Because our true leader isn't the local leader, say, of the parish. Well, yeah, Father Len is a wonderful leader. And we have a wonderful governor in this wonderful state of Idaho. So blessed to live here in Idaho. But I hope that all our hopes and dreams don't lie just in that one person, right? And we've seen, even in the church recently and with other people throughout the world, we really can't put our faith, and I'm going to use this word as I mean it, as men. Because as men, we can make some really bad decisions. We can do some really dumb stuff sometimes. We can also do incredible things. That's why our hope isn't in people. It's not in men or women. Boy, do we have great relationships with people, and together we can do so much. And sometimes we really blow it too, don't we, right? We can. But that's why Jesus is our true leader. Now, have any of you ever met a king? So I had the opportunity to go to Africa. And when I was in Africa, I found out that there are lots of kings. And what I really appreciate about Africa was they live very much like they live in the Bible. They actually have wells with the woman at the well. Yeah, they have those wells there. And they have kings. And in Africa, in the society there, they kind of have 2 systems of government. So you have your official government of the state, and they take care of things like highways and water systems and electricity and, the utilities and things like that. That's all run by the state. And the schools, they're all run by the state. And then you have a king and his cabinet. And the king and the cabinet are more at the local level in the community. And it's really nice because what they do is they'll say, hey, let me use the word George. Hey, George, I noticed you haven't been treating your wife too well lately. That's really not so good. And if you continue to do that, we'll just dig a hole and we'll put you in the hole for 2 weeks. You may or may not eat. Do you want that? Great. Well, then, kind of shape up. okay, I'll do that, right? So it's kind of neat. They have this kind of local level kind of a thing. And, maybe as young men, sometimes we might make some poor decisions. Well, then, as the king and his council, they kind of go and in a local way, they kind of take care of the community. And they say, this is the norm in our community, and this is the way that we'll do things. The next king may come along, or queen will come along and kind of change things up. Now let's look at our gospel today. In today's gospel, is Jesus talking about a king who's building roads and putting in electricity and building dams or wind farms? No, what's this king? What does he do? He's saying, how do you treat others? He said, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. A stranger, and you welcomed me. Then the righteous will answer him and say, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And the king will say to them in reply, amen, I say to you, whatever you did for one of the least brothers of mine, you did for me. So the king, the judge of the world, when he comes and when our time comes to be with Jesus, he's going to use that as that divining rod. How did you treat not your best buddies and those you hang with, those who think and act like you, right? But how did you treat the least in the society? These are good thoughts for us to ponder. How are we treating the least in society at this time? For I was sick, and you visited me. I have a lot of people who are sick. How are we reaching out to them? Now, maybe we can't go to their home and visit like we used to before COVID, but how can we reach out? How can we clothe those who are cold? How can we feed the hungry and give drink to the thirsty? How can we live that in our lives? Jesus continues to feed us. He continues to give us food for our journey. He feeds us with this bread and wine that become his body and blood. And as we eat his body and drink his blood, his life becomes a part of us. And suddenly, Jesus isn't out there somewhere trying to lead and guide us. Where is Christ? He's within. He's within. So we don't have to go outside of us and say, well, what should I do in this circumstance? We know Christ is within us. And we have a decision to make. What should I do, this or that? Turn to Christ. He's already a part of our lives. Turn to his word. Let it inform you. And then, inspired by Christ himself, let us show who we really are. Christians, followers of Christ. Many people today are asking, how do we reach out to the young? How do we reach out to those who aren't coming to church? And the answer is the same as it's always been. In fact, there's a wonderful pastor. His name is Father Dominic. Father Dominic is in charge of the priests of Verbum Spei. Have you met Father Dominic here? He gave a wonderful retreat to us priests. And it was so good because he said, this is the best time to be Catholic. And we're like, what are you talking about? The church is really, kind of not really in good lights in the media, right? And, COVID's hitting. And he said, this is the best time to be Catholic. Because when society isn't going so well, then the church needed to be that solid guiding light that people could turn to. But now that society is actually doing pretty well, then the church can diminish. So we've lost our power. We've lost a lot of our riches. We've lost a lot of our wealth. Heck, we've even lost respect. So what does that mean? We can be ultimately humble. We can be humble like Christ, who is the King of the universe, who was at play with the Lord, and it says in the Psalm, in creating the world. And he loved the world so much that he left his home in heaven and came down here and came in the form of a child and was ultimately humble, giving himself for us. So how do we bring people into the church? By living holy, humble lives. Not just the words we preach, but the way we preach by our actions, by the way that we treat, as it says in here, what you did for these least ones, you did for me. May we truly show that Christ is alive. Christ rules and guides our lives. And show that good news that he wants to come to all people and share his great love as we love one another.